Live look at the big board there on Wall Street. The Dow is down 104, 110, 104. It just keeps moving. So we'll keep you posted throughout the morning of what that number is doing. In the meantime, if you think about it, you spend more time with your coworkers than you do with your family.
That's true. And so when does that relationship sometimes cross the line and you're sucked into the murky waters of an affair?
Well, psychologist and attorney Dr. Eric Fox is here to talk about the 7 signs that you have a work spouse. Good morning,
Good
first
morning.
of all. We should get right to it. I think a lot of people are intrigued. Let's go right to the first sign. Is it that you depend on particular coworkers for office supplies, snacks, aspirin?
Well, that could be part of it, right? I mean, again, going back to what you initially said, we spend a lot more time with people that we work with sometimes than people at home.
Yeah.
And we put our best foot forward when we're at work. We dress up before we go to work. We kind of put on our best clothes, and there aren't the same stressors that you have at home. So it's really a very different atmosphere.
Not to mention when you're at work, you don't talk about the plumbing problems you have at home. You don't talk about we got to redo the lights because they're not here. Okay, this electrical wiring is hanging out. You know, all that stuff really is stressful in a relationship.
Sure it is.
So
I guess one of the things we do here a lot is we get a lot of the inside jokes that maybe people at home won't understand, but it's just between us, for example. Is that also kind of a sign of a work spouse?
Well, yeah, you have common goals. You're working toward things together. You have successes together when you have successful work productions or things that go well. And those things are part of what we look for in a good relationship, right? A balance of power,
Absolutely.
A connection in terms of what you're working toward, and a lot of time together as well as communication.
speaking of communication, it says here in line that you may have a work spouse is that you can be bluntly honest with that person regarding their hygiene.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly that's part of communication, right? The other thing is that when you're working together with people that you spend a lot of time with, do you start to breach over the boundaries and start happening at home?
At home,
right?
of course.
And then you start confiding in the person at work, and you put more energy into the work relationship than you do in the
Not
relationship
just that,
at home.
and those kinds of conversations do and can cross the line into intimacy,
Yes.
quite frankly. And I think they're not acceptable. In my book, I really
agree.
do. I mean, you
Yes,
have to
I
be
agree.
careful with that.
So what exactly is it? A lot of times, I would go for it's very innocent, but a lot of times you tend to finish each other's sentences. You couldn't have put I know how much cream or sugar or whatever.
Yeah,
that
I
kind
know
of
what
stuff.
kind of coffee he likes to drink in the morning,
Yes,
you
that's
know,
right.
and there are certain times that I may look at him and I know what he's thinking,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like that's crossing the line at all. So
No, it's about balance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's about how much are you respecting that relationship and working well together, but are you putting the same amount of energy and time into your relationship at home? Do you confide in the person at work rather than with your spouse? And are those the issues that where you have an imbalance of how your relationships really should be working?
So what happens? So what is it healthy? Is it not healthy? What's the bottom line here?
Well, I guess it's really healthy if it's balanced,
Right.
right? If you're
Okay.
spending
Right.
the amount.
How do you know if it is though? Sometimes you're not quite
well,
sure.
that you can tell if you're really getting, I mean, I'm not the doctor, you are, but, you know, when you're getting a little too comfortable with somebody, you can tell.
Well, if you start confiding in the person at work about your problems at home rather than talking with your spouse at home, that's certainly a sign that there's an imbalance in terms of where your energy is driven.
Big problem.
And if you start to see those things, do you go to your spouse and do you say, hey, I think there's some things that we need to work
Yeah,
on, and then do you put the energy into that relationship?
Tricky.
Really
Dr.
good
Eric
stuff,
Foss,
though.
yeah, very
it's
interesting.
really interesting. I love anything that's dealing with psychology, so thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, Chrissy, now time for some weather and traffic.
Would you guys mind asking the doctor something on my behalf? Because
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, but I had to come outside. Is it odd that when I find a gray hair, I hold it and I run with scissors out to Raul and I ask him to cut it out of my head?
Chrissy is asking to ask you, do you find it odd that if she finds a gray hair in her head, she grabs a pair of scissors and runs to Raul to have...
That's not too bad.
And how,
That's not
That's
too bad.
helping. I know.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. Ah! Ah! And he cuts it out. I
He's gonna be
appreciate
in
it.
trouble. No.
Well, I mean,
innocent.
if that's the
innocent.
case, then it would fall into that I've had coffee with him several times after the show away from the office,
Whoa.
so, but that doesn't mean
Hey,
anything.
There you
TMI,
go.
people.
I'm just saying.
See?
Just saying, it
Weather,
doesn't mean
weather.
anything.
Weather.
He's like, ah. Okay, let's get to it. Well.